Hey, wholesale rebels around the world. I'm super excited because today I have with me and with you guys, we have Vanessa Hung, who is community ambassador at Carbon 6. Vanessa, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for the invite, Philip. I'm super excited to be here with your community.
Yeah, and just before we joined the recording, we were talking offline a little bit, and Vanessa was saying, like, Phil, how much can I say? Like, you should branch out of wholesale and resell and venture into more business models in Amazon. And I was saying, like, don't scare the public too much, but let's talk about it. So I'm hoping we're going to talk about it, but I'm also hoping to get a lot of your input and expertise on some of the account management, the recent changes to what has been happening with Amazon. And we'll see how much we can cover within our timeline. So let's get started. And at the beginning, Vanessa, I wanted just to ask you, like, have you always known that you will be part of the e-commerce thing, or when did it start for you? Like,
Oh, not at all. Like, I had no clue what e-commerce was before, I don't know, 2015, I guess. When I was, I'm from Venezuela. So when I was in Venezuela, I founded like a couple of brands. And one of them was a balance board brand.
mhm,
And I got the product. I was manufacturing there in Venezuela, and I was super excited. I love my product. I love it. So I wanted to sell online. I wanted to sell to more people. So like what started there then, like in Venezuela, we don't have Amazon.
yeah,
So what I did was selling through Instagram, right? So I was
mm,
posting like cute pictures on Instagram, and if people was interested, they will message me. And then I was thinking about, like, I should do a website. And at the beginning, when I started like researching about websites, the drop shipping model was super common, right?
yeah,
So I'm like, oh, a drop shipping, let me see. And then after I got into the rabbit hole of drop shipping, I found Amazon drop shipping. That at that point in 2015, that was the biggest way to do money on Amazon, to make money on Amazon. So I started like learning a lot about Amazon itself, like FBA, what's a model, what you need to do. And I kind of got stuck because I couldn't figure out how to open an account, how to open an LLC from Venezuela.
yeah,
And that's the end. That like there was when I stopped and I couldn't figure it out. So I just kept going with my Instagram page with my brand, and that went well. Eventually I moved out of my country. I went to the Middle East, and then I came here to America. And like, again, things that happen in life that you don't know how to explain, but at the same time you think about every single thing that happening to your life prepare you for this.
yeah,
I was interviewing for a job. It was like a procurement kind of back end job in a company that had retail stores, where I needed to, manage Excel, which I happen to be very good at and I like. And at one point, the manager that was interviewing me said, like, oh, and we also would like to get into Amazon. And I'm like, oh, Amazon FBA. And his eyes were like huge, and he's like, do you know Amazon FBA? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, I knew about the YouTube videos that I was like looking. I knew how the system worked, but I wasn't like an expert. And
yeah,
then they hired me there to do the job, and we started the account. We put products in, all of it, and it became extremely easy for me. I don't think that's an easy thing. Like, it was just that it was easy for me because all of my background, and I happened to fall into e-commerce. But honestly, it's not either that I was preparing for it. I just, I think those are the opportunities that the universe puts out for you. And if you're really aware and prepared for it, you can take. And I think that a lot of people have the same thing. Like, if there are people in your community that keep, learning and keep developing their skills, eventually something's gonna come up that they're gonna say, like, oh my God, my whole career or journey prepared me for this, and now I'm ready. So that's how I came across e-commerce. It wasn't something that I planned since I was in high school, but I knew since forever, since I was a little kid, I knew that I was gonna be in business. Like I knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will add my piece of the story. So I started selling around 10 years ago on Amazon, and I still remember the first product we got. It was we were doing private label. We started with private label. Like for years, I did not even know that something like wholesale existed. But I remember our first product was a kite for kids that we got from China. We just branded it with our own and like ordered 300 units or something, like a minimal viable product style. And it started selling like crazy. We just opened the account in US, and we're like on the third day, I remember me and my business partner, we had this like board behind us where we were like already writing down like how quickly we'll become billionaires, like millionaires, like within a year. So we didn't have much money, but we got a loan, and then we like invested in 20 other products, knowing that we were just gonna like 20x our billion, which is amazing. And then none of the other products, like all of them bombed. Like none of them really worked because we didn't know one thing that we did with this first product right, that we never repeated with the other products. And it was amazing because it's like that's to me a proof that like this learning, like it is a process and it's always ever changing, I think. And you might not know in the beginning, like when the first product was like hit and was a massive hit for us, I was like extremely excited. With the 10th product, I wanted to quit, but we didn't, and we stayed, and we kind of learned all from it. So yeah, so anybody who's starting right now, I think they might think that like one business model is better, another is better, like better than the other. Like this, I'm gonna enter this way. Like it's just in a way important to start. Like for you, it was driven by some hunch and maybe by a little bit of curiosity and just by being
Yeah.
bold about what you want to do and where you want to go. You have to just start. And I have
Yeah.
a side question to it. Where in the Middle East and for how long?
Qatar. I was in
Okay,
Qatar for almost a year.
how you liked it?
I love it. I love Qatar.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
food. I mean, because I'm international, I'm not like Muslim or anything. That there is a huge community of international people. Actually, the majority of people that live in Qatar are not from Qatar. So my uncle lived there. That's why I was there for the beginning. I went on a vacation there and ended up staying, and I honestly love it. I probably I don't see myself living there for long term, but it was one of the most amazing experience. And one of the other things that I want to say, and this is so important, Philip, that you mentioned, Amazon is an ever changing ecosystem. And that's probably one of the things that I love the most, because when I was the e-commerce manager for this company that had stores, I used to go to the store because that was where the office was, and I used to go there every day, right? Like 6 days a week. I was like hustling super hard. And one thing that for me was like my soul was dying every day is that nothing changed ever. Like I was there for a year and a half, and every single day looked the same. And I felt so trapped, and that's something that I love about this, like e-commerce and ecosystem and Amazon and everything, is that if you think that one day, like next week is going to be completely different. So there is no opportunity to get comfortable, and that's something that I appreciate a lot. And I do think if there is people wanting to start and they don't feel comfortable with that ever changing environment, they should question whether they should keep going or look for something else. But the curiosity is like the biggest thing for me. Like the fact that I could learn something new every day is just accelerating for me. I love it.
Okay, so I'm gonna riff off that. We have one of the things I love about talking to Vanessa is we discussed before, and we have a couple topics that we wanted to discuss, but we might actually come like discuss them on another time, because I'm actually very much interested in talking about that, what you just said. And like, I'm curious how you approach it, because you're saying the learning is so important and that curiosity is important, and just being able to change and constantly kind of, be in the flow of the change. I'm wondering how you're thinking about things that are not your strongest point. Like, let's say, for example, I want to start a Amazon wholesale business, but I'm really bad at spreadsheets, or I'm really like there's an element of like cash flow or profitability, like just calculating money things. These are very often for a lot of people not sexy topics, and things that, we all have some strong points, and we all have some things that we have to learn. Like, have you always been kind of approaching it in a way of like, I'm gonna learn everything I can, or you learned to partner up or hire? What's your approach on kind of such a
Yeah,
diverse amount of topics? Because you
I
also
like.
do private, like you're also an expert in topics connected to private label, which is even more robust and more varied than wholesale, right?
Yeah. So that's a a question that I want to split in parts. The first thing is that I've done every single model that you could possibly do. Like I did retail arbitrage, I did online arbitrage, I did wholesale, and I launched two private label brands. So and I also have an agency, which is like the management service that I have. Um, and each of them have different challenges. So one thing that I like, and this, when I thought about this, I'm like, this is the key for life, I believe, is that we look for the problems that we want to have in life. Like, do you want to have the problems or of resellers, or do you want to have the problems of private label people, or do you want to have the problems of a freelancer, or you want to have the problems of an agency? And you are not going to know which are the problems until you try them out. So I do believe that the ecosystem is getting to a point where sellers need to be very professional. And what I mean by that is that there is no option for you to be mediocre or bad at a specific area. And not necessarily that you personally could not be mediocre, like you could be, but you need to learn either to partner or to hire that thing. I'm going to say, I don't like PPC. I don't like advertising on Amazon. If you ever come to me and ask me a PPC question, I have no clue. I have no idea. I don't know. I honestly don't know. So when I launched my private label brand, that's something that I really struggle with. And I hired, an agency to do that for me. The thing that was important was that I hired them for the everyday operations, but I understood at that moment that the bigger decisions need to come from me. For example, how much budget, what's the acres that I want to target, what's the specific niche or sub niche that I want to do, because that's one thing is just managing the PPC, the other thing is doing the research to know which keywords you should be excelling at. So in that sense, it's like a question that you cannot solve unless you try something out and see if it fits. It took me a year and a half to be like an expert in my areas, the unsexy, the flat files, the management, the catalog, seller support, all of that. It wasn't that the first week that I got in, I was like, oh my God, this is my thing. No, you need to try that out, right? And I also did PPC, and I was working when I was an e-commerce manager. I was doing Amazon PPC. It just like after a year and a half, I just felt that my skill wasn't getting better by day, but then the other skills were getting like exponentially better every single day that passed, right? So you really need to come to the realization and make peace with yourself and feeling that you are enough, because that's something that happened to me when I launched my first private label. It was a complete disaster, Philip. I lost so much money. I had a partner. I felt that I was disappointing everybody because I couldn't figure it out like a nice like launch strategy and PPC and all of the ranking and all of the things. But I was exceptionally good at managing an account with flat files and catalog management and inventory and account health. I was exceptionally good. So it took me a while to realize that I should be focusing on the things that I'm good at, and I don't like seller problems. I don't really like being a seller and having logistic problems or keyword ranking or PPC problems. I just don't. And at one point I said to myself, well, that's okay. I could find a way to do it. So if the people that are listening now are in the way to becoming a seller and they still are trying out different things, my first advice is that you really should make a list of the things that you like to do, the things that you're good at, and the things that you don't like to do. Okay, and also things that you are not good at. But the problem with the things that you're not good at is that you probably don't realize that you're not good at, right? So I mean, that takes a little bit of feedback from other people or even feedback from your business. If you're losing money, it's clear that you probably are not good at understanding profitability. So there are things like profitability is probably the thing that if you're not good at, you better get good at. Like, no matter how much partners you have or how many employees you have, like, you need to understand profitability. You need to understand your numbers, because that's what business is about. Either it's Amazon or having a store in a mall or having whatever. You need to understand unit costs and you need to understand profitability. So try it out, and yeah, hire people. In my area, I hire the people to manage the things that I didn't want to manage or I wasn't good at, and I partner with other people to develop the product and stuff like that. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's just become sincere and honest with your strengths and your weaknesses.
yeah, and I think that could be quite a good transition for us to talk a little bit about the challenges. You said in a bit different words, but you said that like there are different type of challenges and problems. You use the word problems for wholesale sellers. There's a different for arbiters. There's different for private label sellers. And for those who don't know, you have been public speaking on so many events. You have been, an expert voice to so many like high level sellers, like 7-8 figure sellers, and you've been helping, like with your agency, you've been helping from like small sellers to like really big ones with different business models. So I'm curious, as we before we started, we had this kind of conversation of how honest should we be about like branching out to different things and thinking about your business from a perspective of like, hey, maybe you should also think about some other business models than only resell. How do you look, and what do you think are the challenges to wholesale currently, and kind of problems of wholesale? Maybe not only from a perspective of a new seller, but like from the sellers that you also work with that are already mid-size or big, like, because we see a lot of sellers branching out also when they kind of become big, they branch out to private label very often as their natural path. So I was also curious, maybe you could speak a little bit about why do you think that is? Because for me, private label, as a person who started there, is such a much more complicated model. Like there's just so many more moving parts from, you have to be good at copywriting, which at reselling you don't really. Product images, so a different way of being smart at selling something, at the marketing something. You have to think about reviews, and you have to think about your listing score of how optimized it is, all those things. How do you see challenges to Amazon resell? And I had a conversation with Todd Snively some time ago, who's a big wholesale seller and a big guru in the space, and he also said, like, Philip, it's not easy. Like, this is not easy. So I'm curious on your perspective and approach on that.
Okay, I'm
Just
gonna be very.
don't tell my audience not to do wholesale. Just let's
No, no,
package it in a way.
no, no, not at all. So, okay, I'm gonna say something, and this could cause some disagreements,
Controversy. All right.
or yeah, controversy, or people. So I know a bunch of people in the reselling space that are like gurus, right? Like teachers, and they have courses and all of that. And I know them as a teacher, and I also know them as a client because I work with them in their account. And it's funny because people don't tell you, or the big ones don't tell you how is exactly that they're getting their product. So the biggest challenge right now, I do believe, as a reseller, is finding distributors. And you and I are part of the group, right, on Facebook for the wholesale community. And this question comes back every single post. How can
Yeah.
I find more distributors? Because the ones that I'm finding don't have the right prices. Okay, guys, I'm gonna tell you the secret. So the people that are successful at sourcing and that find products that are profitable are buying from what they call diverters. Diverters, yeah. It's basically like a huge company that buy like from big brands, and they like diverge to different countries, or to different stores. So for example, and this is example. For example, I'm a diverger. I'm going to buy from Johnson and Johnson, and then I'm going to resell that to a specific chain of supermarkets. But in the middle of that transaction, I'm gonna take part of my products and I'm gonna resell it to other people. So even though my main business is to stock those like big supermarkets, I'm gonna split that and give it to other people. So the little distributors that you find are buying from these big guys. Like, you are not gonna make money nowadays out of little distributors. It's just not gonna happen. It's because there are too many people in the chain of reselling. Like, this one sold to this one and sold to that one, sold to that one. That is the one that's is gonna sell to you. And the other thing that I found, and this is something that I don't agree with, is actually something that could potentially damage your account, but I've seen that a lot of like successful resellers do, is that they buy from distributors outside of the country. So for example, I buy my products in the Middle East and I bring them to the States, but they're brand name products. For example, a Johnson and Johnson product, right? Like a baby, whatever, shampoo. I'm gonna buy it in the Middle East and I'm gonna bring it to America. The thing with that could be extremely profitable because I know sellers that do it. The problem with that is that that product is not designed for the US. So you could have like Amazon suspend your listing, suspend even your account because you're selling things that are not designed for the US. And if you're selling consumables and the consumables are regulated by the FDA, you could get into a bigger problem. So I know sellers that say like, oh no, but it's the exact same product. It is in English, it's the exact same, nothing happens. And I'm like, it is not designed for the United States. So I mean, they have getting suspend listings, suspended accounts, and there is no way to fight it. Like, you cannot. But the reward of doing that model is so high that the risk is worth it. So if somebody here is thinking like, oh, I don't have luck finding distributors, maybe you're looking in the wrong place. But at the same time, the people that I know are successful now, that are doing these models, are doing it in a very gray area. This is very risky. So now that you tell me, and again, this is what I told you, Philly, this could sound very pessimistic, but the cure to that problem is making sure that you transition from being a plain reseller. So a guy that buys something for $10 and sell it for 20, like you want to stop being that person and you want to start developing your skills to become a brand operator. So what I mean by a brand operator is that person that will contact the brand and not only gonna say like, hey, I have the budget to buy your inventory, but also it will say like, I can manage your PPC, I can make your listing better, I can make your pictures better, and you need to prove that. Like it's not only about saying it, you actually need to have a track record. And if you see, and this is something that I love every time I see Scott Neiman talking about it, like the bigger sellers in the world are resellers. The biggest sellers in every single states of America are resellers. The biggest seller in the world is a reseller, but it's not a plain reseller that is just buying for cheap and selling for more. It is a reseller that is managing the brands as if they were theirs. So that's the cure to that problem, because now you are gonna stop approaching distributors and you're gonna approach brands and say like, hey, I can be your operator. So start thinking about being like, how can you be a brand manager, putting the brand hat and offering that to your brands, rather than just like keep fighting for distributors that just don't have the price to compete in this ecosystem.
Okay, there is tons of things that I would want to unpack here. We are unfortunately running out of time, so I want to say a couple things. One is I had recently a great conversation with Filipe Araujo, who's the founder of ScanUnlimited and also a wholesale seller here in US, and his business model basically is very based on just trade shows, and not even ASD. ASD he rarely goes anymore, but like he goes to very much smaller regional trade shows where um, that credibility of a distributor is bigger. Like the risk of being scammed is much lower. If somebody can afford to go to a trade show, of course it's going to be much easier for like they have to put out some money and stuff. So the credibility is there, and also it's much easier to get a direct access to brands via trade shows. And so, of course, there's that path, and that's something that somebody does. But like, wholesale has so many names that like for one person's business doesn't have to be everybody's in a way. And the way you're kind of describing this smart way of being a wholesaler is kind of actually being almost a manager, but like added value, right? Like adding value to the brand, and we see a lot of those high end and like name brands that on e-commerce their kind of presence is very poor, and the quality of their presence is poor, from pictures
Yeah.
to the writing, and like they're just basically selling thanks to the fact that they're a known name, not because of how well they're optimized on Amazon. So definitely there's plenty of space where you can add value, and you can come in and say like, hey guys, like I love your products. We would love to be a reseller, but A, B, and C, and D. And I think these are things that we would love to do for you that will improve your sales. And in the end, like, who doesn't want more sales? Of course, these are companies that sometimes that process takes a while, but it's such a smart thing you mentioned, Vanessa. And we had for today 5 or 6 topics, and we're unfortunately at the half an hour mark, so we'll have to finish for today, but only under one thing and one promise, Vanessa, that you will still be able to join us
Yeah.
in some time at least, and we'll cover some topics, because the things that we wanted to discuss is like common mistakes that sellers make when it comes to managing their accounts, the recent changes to the Amazon account management policies, good practices for managing customer feedback and reviews, and I think that's very valuable to know, and some key metrics and reports that like sellers should look at, and these are all kind of your expertise, and something that I would really love to hear more. So if I get a promise that we'll see each other again and we'll do one more
100%.
recording, at least one, all right, then it's a promise. But in the meantime, Vanessa, could you tell us, like, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about you, how to work with you, or how just to kind of learn more, where would you lead them?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to learn more about what Philip said about the changes on Amazon and all of the new things, I take a lot of time to craft content for LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, make sure that you find me. It's Vanessa Hong. You could follow me, connect with me. That's my favorite social media right now. I also have an Instagram account that I post content that is more like videos and pictures and screenshots where I walk you through processes. And that's at It's Vanessa Hong. And then the website, if you have any questions about management, managing the account, you have any issues, I have an agency that's onlinesellersolutions.com. You can also go there or write to my email, Vanessa at onlinesellersolutions. And obviously, guys, like, we are here as part as the community for the ScanUnlimited people, and also the wholesale community that is on Facebook. If you have any questions about community, make sure that leave them there, because one thing that I get a lot of questions through Facebook from this community, and what I ask people to do is that they leave it in the group, so when I answer, I can answer for everybody. So anybody in the future that have the same question could see the answer. So if you have anything, just make sure to leave it in the group. I'm very active there. Just tag me and say like, hey, I have a question for Vanessa. Just tag me there. And yeah, that's the way.
Yeah. The group is called Amazon FBA Wholesale, and you can get there via Facebook or via ScanUnlimited. When you join, you can join for a free account and just start testing the business model, automating the product picking process. So hopefully, see you at the group, and see you in our community. Vanessa, it's been a pleasure. We
Thank
have
you.
not touched one question, which means it was a good conversation. So that's a good
Yeah.
start, I hope. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Have a great